Hello and welcome back to the Academic Society. It's Toyin here, and I created the Academic Society to help graduate students with time management, productivity, self-care, basically surviving grad school, and I also share a bit about my life as an academic. I got my PhD in math about 3 years ago, and now I have my dream job as a lecturer at a university. And so today's video, I want to talk about how to become a college professor. And so granted, I am a lecturer, but the path is exactly the same. And I will share the difference between a lecturer, a professor, a teaching professor, a research professor, all the things, just so you have all of the information. So if you're curious on how do you exactly become a college professor, keep watching this video. So I won't start super way back, kindergarten, but I will start with college. So in college, I realized I loved math so much. Like, it took me a while to realize, yeah, math's not just my favorite subject. I have a genuine interest in learning more and more about math. So I would say the first step into becoming a college professor is figure out what you have a passion for and what is something that you would love to learn about even more. Like, if you had to spend your whole life learning about a topic, what is that topic? And it can be as creative as, I want to figure out why poverty is an issue in this one town, to, I just like physics. So if you have a passion for something and you can see yourself learning about it forever, then you have step one to becoming a college professor. Step two is going to graduate school. So finding a program, a graduate program that will lead you to continuing to learn about that topic. So it's helpful to look at schools. Rankings are good, but I would ask you to go a little deeper. Find actual professors, so people, faculty members who are actually studying exactly what you want to study or something very close and very aligned to what you're studying. That is where you want to go. You want to go to the place that has the research area that you want to do. And if you're like me and you have no idea what you want to research, go to the place that gives you the money. You don't want to have to be paying for graduate school if you can avoid it. So I was able to go to graduate school with the fellowship because I'm a Black woman who got her PhD in math. I was very underrepresented in my field. So I was able to get a fellowship for being underrepresented in that field. And so they actually got to be in a program with a lot of women in my math program. And so step two is finding a graduate program that will help you to continue to study that thing you love. So while you're in grad school, you will take courses, whether they're related to what you want to research or not. You will take courses in your field. You will do a research in your field. You will learn from professors. You may do some teaching. You may do some grading or tutoring. I highly recommend, if you can, even whether you want to teach or not, I recommend trying to teach a class. So this can be tricky because maybe your grad program won't allow you to teach. So let's start with the best case scenario. Your program allows grad students to teach. So the math department is a service department. Every student in school, in a college, takes a math class pretty much. So math teachers are very needed. So their grad students in math departments usually teach classes. So I was lucky. I was able to teach classes throughout most of my grad school experience. There are other programs where you're not allowed to teach or there aren't enough courses for you to teach. So I would highly recommend, if you go and get your master's, as you have your master's, maybe over the summer, see if you can teach as an adjunct at a community college or teach summer school at a community college, just so you can get some teaching experience, because that will be very valuable when you're on the market for getting a job as a professor. Okay, so back to me. I was terrified to teach, but I discovered it's actually fulfilling and I love it, and I can't imagine doing anything else. All right, so the second step was graduate school and gaining your PhD. So after that, it's time to figure out, okay, what kind of job can you get? So this is how you become a college professor. All right, so there are multiple kinds of jobs in academia. You could be a professor at a Research One institution. You could be a professor at a liberal arts school. You could be a professor at a community college. You could be a lecturer You could be an instructor. You could be a teaching assistant professor. You could be a postdoc. There are so many different titles, and I have a video all about the different jobs and career paths in academia. If you want to check that out, I'll link it above here somewhere. But the reason why I would prefer that you do have some teaching experience while you are in grad school is because it will tell you what kind of job you want. So if you are not able to get teaching experience while you're in grad school, I recommend getting a postdoc next. So it's like something you do after you get your PhD to continue your research or learn a little bit more about teaching in your field. And so that's like the next step. Because I was able to teach while I was in graduate school, I was able to skip having a postdoc and jump straight into my teaching position. So as I was applying for jobs, I realized I actually don't want to teach at a Research One institution. I don't want to be a professor that has to commit to publishing a certain number of papers, taking on graduate students, teaching a class or two. I wanted to be all teaching all the time. So that's why I chose a position that was 100% teaching. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let's talk about how you actually get one of these jobs as a college professor or a lecturer or a postdoc. The process is pretty much the same. You have this big application process that no one really tells you about until it's time. So as a mathematician, I did not have to write any papers in graduate school. Literally, my dissertation was it. But when I was applying for jobs, I had to write all these papers. I'm like, I don't remember how to write. So that was a struggle. I highly recommend using your writing center on campus to help you with your application packet. So let's talk about what's all involved. Number one, you need a teaching statement. So a teaching statement or a teaching philosophy is what you believe you're teaching to be, how you actually implement learning and cultivate learning in your classroom. It's basically an illustration of what a day in your classroom would be like. So how you teach, how you engage with the students, things like that. You also need a research statement. So a research statement tells like a brief overview of your research, the results you have now, your plans for a year later, your 3-year plan, as well as your future plan and how you plan to work with graduate students and undergraduate students on your research. So basically, what was your research like and how do you plan to continue on with the scholarly activity once you have your job? Also, you need a CV. So your CV is like an extended resume. It's really long. It tells all of your qualifications, your education, your skills, all of your research projects you've done, all of the classes you taught, all of the volunteering and community service you've done. So you also need a CV. And finally, one of the main things that you need is a cover letter. And so you need to write a cover letter for your application for your job as a college professor. So you need to write about why you want to work at that school, why it's a good fit, what kind of activities you want to pursue while you are there. So I highly recommend customizing your cover letter for every single school that you apply for. I actually have a course on how to apply for a job in academia. It's called the Job Application Crash Course, and I'll put a link for it in the description of this video. So you also need letters of recommendation. I recommend having 2 people to talk about your research and 2 people to talk about your teaching. See, the teaching is very important. So if you don't have the teaching yet, I highly recommend becoming a postdoc first, and then you can get a teaching position. All right, so after you have applied, let's say you get an interview. So the next step after applying is typically a Skype or phone interview just to kind of vet you a little more. And then after that, hopefully you'll be invited on campus for an on-campus interview. So an on-campus interview is basically the school saying, okay, we really like you. We want you to like us too. And so with the on-campus interview, it's basically trying to see, are you and the school you're applying to a good fit? Would you be happy in that town? Would you be happy in that school? Would you be able to continue your research there? Would you be able to teach the students there? And so after the on-campus interview, which typically lasts 1 to 2 days, it's very long and exhausting, where you are interviewed by the people on the committee, so different faculty members in the department. There may be an outside member, so someone from a different department. You, depending on the size of the school, you may even meet the president of the school. You'll talk to HR, you'll talk to student affairs. You may get to talk to students as well. And while you're there, you will present your research. You may have to do a teaching demonstration. It's a very exhausting experience, but it's one where you know they already like you, and you just have to make sure that you like them. And my biggest tip for that is just be yourself while you're there. All right, and so after the on-campus interview, when you get the position, they'll call you and say, congratulations, we want to hire you. Here is what we're offering you. So the job offer as well as like the salary, and that's your time to negotiate. If you like to negotiate your salary, and you'll say, okay, I want this position, and then you're hired, and that is how you become a college professor. It's a long process, but it's very rewarding once you get there, as long as you have chosen the type of job that you want. So I have a video all about the different types of jobs in academia and why I chose the type of job in academia that I have. So I hope that this video was helpful and that you learned a little bit more about how to become a college professor. So I'll run through the steps again. Step 1, choose a topic that you want to study forever. Step 2, go to grad school and get your PhD. Step 3, try to teach a class. Step 4, apply for jobs. Step 5, have an on-campus interview. And step 6, negotiate and start your job. So let me know if you have any questions about becoming a college professor. And if you're new here, consider subscribing to this channel. And if you think this video will be helpful to someone, please share it with them. All right, you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.